Holy Spirit.
Amen.
Let us pray for justice, for peace. Hail Mary,
Full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Mary, seat of wisdom,
Pray for us.
in the name of the Father, and of the Son, of the Holy Spirit. So, the last class, it was a virtual class. I invited you to follow the class on society. So you saw what is society, the component of society. But in any society, what is common, it is a principle of unity, a principle of organization, that delimiting the society. And that in the case of a country, we call that a state. So this morning we have to study what is a state. It is a class of political philosophy or philosophical politics. In fact, philosophy is interested with every reality. And social life is a reality very important. And in the social life, we have to study what is society, what is the state, and what is the government, because they are reality in which we live. So we have to know, to have some philosophical approach about that. Philosophical approach. That is the meaning. So I give you some references. I hope you have time to read that, at least 5 of it, on the textbook. But I invite you to read Article 5 in Social Agenda on the quotation of the Church about the state, about authority, temporal authority, and common good. Now, common good is a concept that will come continually in social ethics. It's fundamental. So we have to have a good idea. And also, another document I invite you to read is the compendium. The word compendium means synthesis. In Greek it is synthesis, in Latin it's compendium. So the synthesis compendium of the Church, the social doctrine of the Church, and it is chapter 8. So here, if you look at, you have the first paragraph, a political community, the human person and people. So that is the first paragraph. And the second, defending the promotion of human rights. So that is very, very good. It is the essential of the teaching of the Catholic Church on social ethics. And if you want something very concise, and not long to read, because you are very, very, very busy, you can go to the text of Javier Herveda, I give you, that text you have, and read the paragraph on society, authority, common good, and the principle of subsidiarity. Javier Herveda gave you a very good synthesis, very clear, and with the references, if ever, to use that in the future. Okay? So let us reflect on first on the origin of the state, because if we have to live in a state, to obey the law of the state, we must know how the state came to exist. In fact, there is two opinions. Those who say that the origin of the state is from nature, is a natural origin, and those who say, no, state is a conventional reality. That means a reality made by the will of man, by the will of man, convention or contractual, conventional or contractual reality. So we have the two tendencies. Those say the state is nature, is based on our human nature, and therefore we can go from that, human nature, express natural law, and natural law comes from eternal law. Those say no, society is conventional. So a state is the fruit of the will of man. What Jefferson wrote in your Constitution? By the people, for the people, by the people. That means in the Constitution, the origin is contractual. It is the people who decide to do that. That has very big consequences. We'll see that, big consequences. Okay? So, let us go to the Greek, because the Greek are those who reflect systematically on the state, on the origin of the state. And in fact, Plato, the first, in Greek, a state is translated by polis. The name? Polis. So when you see a policeman, it's the man of the state. City. In fact, police means city. You know, when you were a boy, you play mono, poly. Only one control, monopoly. Okay, one city. So, in fact, for the Greek, they did not have the idea of a large country. In fact, they were people around Athens, people around Sparta, you know, people around Thessaloniki, etc. So they were the cities. In fact, it was real for Germany and for Italy up to the last, 1850, 1870. The unification, before Italy was a series of little principalities, little cities, if you want. For example, St. Francis of Assisi, who lived about 10 miles from Perugia, but the city of Assisi fought against Perugia. And St. Francis was made a prisoner. He stayed 1 year in the dungeon, and that he had the time to reflect. And when he went out, he was another man, very sick, but at the same time transformed in his heart. So the Greek has got that idea, but in fact, the city of the state did not begin large. Look at the United States. How many states at the beginning? 13, you know. And now how many? 15, you know. So that means the Greek was a little bit the same. They have little cities, but there was something common. They spoke the same language. They have almost the same gods. There was a kind of unity of those Greek cities. So Plato said that the state comes from the needs, the economic needs of men. Economic needs. Well, it's interesting to go to the root of the word economy, economic needs. Eco comes from oikos in Greek, that means home, house. House. A nomos means to control, to run, to direct. So it is to direct the house. That is the meaning of economy, economos. So because, you know, when you are alone in the forest, you have to live alone with your family and some bear and some deer. It's not a problem. And when you live together in the village, when the village is growing, what you are obliged to do? You have to obliged to specialize. That means not everyone is able to have time, for example, to make shoes. Not everyone has time to make shovels, to make hoe, etc. So what happened? There was a necessity of specialization. So someone specialized in taking care of cows, other sheep, other, you know, they have to protect the village. So little by little people, there was a blacksmith, there was a carpenter. For example, in Nazareth, Saint Joseph was carpenter of the village, but there was other job also. So specialization. And what happened? If you specialize and you want to continue to live, you make shoes. Can you eat your shoes? No. So you have to exchange. Commerce, trade. That is exchange. So specialization leads to exchange. And that is economy. All that is. In fact, economy is, according to Plato, the need for economy is at the root of the organization of the state. Because if you have exchange, you must have some criteria, some standard of exchange. For example, here we have money. Well, maybe in that time they have no money, but they have maybe pearls or they have other things, fruit, vegetable, etc. Aristotle said that the root of state is the family. Aristotle is close to nature. And family is based, is established by nature. Never Aristotle thought that family was not unnatural. He was married. The difference between Plato and Aristotle. Plato was a bachelor. He never married. He would say he was not, he was, he said the best love is between two men or two women, because to be equal. That is in Plato. But Aristotle was married. He has a wife, he has a son. We know the name Nicomedes. His wife Eudomena. So he was close to the reality. He was a biologist. His father was a physician, the physician of the king of Macedonia. And Aristotle was the teacher of Alexander the Great. Never forget that. Okay? So he said that the state, in fact, is a creature of nature, because who made the state? Families. It's not a man arrive a day and say, I create a state. Even Solon, the great politician of Greece, Solon, he did not create. He was in front of many cities or many families, and finally he said, hey, we have to make a law. We cannot continue to trust only on the other, because someone are very strong, others are very astute. So we have to make a law to legify. So the state is created by nature. That is very, very important. If we accept that the state has its origin in nature, who is the one who is the author of the law of the state? Of course, it is the man, but we must respect nature. That means there is something above the human legislator. That means there is an eternal legislator, the author of nature. If you say the origin of the state is man, we decide to create a state, and we have the boss. So who is the authority? Supreme authority is man. So man can declare what is good, what is not good. It is exactly the system in which we live now. Now you went to Washington recently. Men decided that abortion is legal. You can kill babies, good. That is the difference. So it's not innocent. It's not a waste of time to reflect on the origin of the state. One conception made people to obey God through the law of the state. The other, they obey themselves. And they can change their laws. They can change their laws. Okay? So, now the three remarks coming from Aristotle. First, he said the Greek, in fact, the problem of the state is very old in the Greek. It's not something recent. So we can say as long as men live in many families, family make clans, and clans make tribes. So many families make clans, and clans make tribes. And tribes make country. So that you must know that when you speak about Middle East. Middle East, the problem is here. Like in some country in Africa, the problem is it's a tribal problem between two series of families, of clans, and they fight to have the power or to have the control of the traffic of camels, etc. If you know well the geography of Holy Land, you will see that you have the Mediterranean here, you have Egypt here, you have Syria and Iran, Persia, and there is here the desert. Here's the Mediterranean. And there is a passage here. And that passage is Israel. So you understand why Israel was always an occasion of fight. Huh? Because the one who controlled the trade between the Middle East and Egypt, the two main important countries at that time. So and many times it was a fight. Who wanted what? The supremacy tribe. It took at the 12th tribe of Israel, no? So Judah south, Israel the north. It is a reality even today. Huh? Even today. Okay. So the passage of mankind from non-political existence and the family to political existence, the state. Of police. What is the difference between to live in a city and to live in a little village? The material organization is completely different. Huh? If you live in the Adirondack Mountains, you don't have, it's not necessary to have the same system of aqueduct, water and sewer than we have in New York. The more people you meet together, the more they must be civilized. That means, what is civilization? It's the technique allowing men to live together. That is civilization. It's different from culture. Culture are the values. Okay, so the actual state, according to the Greek, are arisen from three factors. First, from colonization. Colo in Latin means to cultivate. So, and when we speak about the Jews who were in Israel, they said they were colonizer. It is to cultivate the land. The land was not cultivated, the land was abandoned, and we transform the land, we cultivate, colonization. Conquest, the second is arms, the power, to conquer. And finally, revolution also. Three ways of provoking the birth of a state. Here we have that, 1776. It was the birth of a new state, a new state. Okay? So colonization or conquer, for the conquistador race in South America, or also through revolution. We change and we want to create a new state. And finally, the first formation of state was not made consciously. It is something that is formed little by little, unconsciously. And after a certain time, many years, maybe centuries, we say, hey, we should have something precise. We should organize our state. In fact, the organization of states in the history of humankind is very recent. 3,000 years before Jesus Christ, they began to organize cities. But man lived beneath for 3 million years. So it's very recently in the history of the world. Why? Because people, before they live alone in little group, they were not numerous, they were not obliged to have relations with others, they were self-sufficient. But the more we trade, the more we exchange, the more we use camels and horses. After that we use car and use plane. And today it's a universal market. The whole world is unified. We call that globalization. Okay? So, but in that organization, what is the difference between the organization of man together and the organization of ants, of bees? They are intelligent. We do that in a rational way. We use our intellect and we use our freedom. So we share, in fact the state is not something natural, like for example the growth of a baby or the growth of flower. It is natural, but what is the nature of man?
Intelligent and free.
Exactly, to use my intelligence and my freedom. So when we say state is natural, it is natural in that sense. It's not natural, I mean, men did nothing, suddenly they were a state, no. He is the creator of the state. But why? Because he has the power received from God to organize a common life between many families, many clans, many tribes, etc. Okay? So, in fact, the one who inspired our philosophy St. Thomas uses, is Aristotle. So Aristotle was centered on the family. It's interesting. What is the motive used by the Pope continually since 2 years, everywhere? Family. The family. The family is the cell of the society. The cell are necessary to make your body. The family is the cell. So division of labor, and we explain that. We specialize, or if you want, we call that division of labor. Not everyone can do everything. Not everyone can do everything. In an orchestra, not everyone played the first violin. Not everyone played the trumpet. I remember I conducted a band with young adolescent. The trumpetist, everyone wanted to be the first trumpetist, the first, to have the team, you know. No, in the orchestra, everyone has his own responsibility. We call that division of labor. But, you know, immediately we say if we divide, if we exchange, we need an authority. We need the principle of peace, of common agreement. So we need an organization. And that organization is the state. We need that for 3 reasons. First, we have to defend ourselves. Defend ourselves against, first, wild beasts. Wild beasts, you know. In some village in Cameroon, North Cameroon, people have to defend against elephants. Well, the elephants are in the reserve, was our reserve, but now they multiply because, you know, don't kill little elephant. So they multiply, and they have to eat. And they don't have enough in the pack. So what they go in the farm of the people, and in 1 hour, 5-10 minutes, they destroy almost everything. So people have to defend against that. We are not used to that here. But some country, for example, against lions, and those who have cows in Tanzania, for example, they have to protect their cows against lion, against leopard. During the night, they attack to eat cows, you know. So it was a necessity, and that is the origin of the military. Defend against also the neighbor, because not every neighbor is a friend. Sometimes neighbors are an enemy. They want to possess what we have. They want to collect our crop. Secondly, the need for economic exchange. So economy. So we cannot cultivate everything. For example, today, we can have here in the United States bananas, oranges, but they don't grow in New England. So there is economy. And finally, we need law, a legal aspect. Law, or the legal aspect of society. We cannot live without rule. It is a myth to think that man has no rule. That is necessary. You remember when you were 6 years old or 9 years old, and you played together, many boys together, what you did? You put some rule. When you play tag, you put some rule. And naturally, one of you became the leader, spontaneously. So it is the same in society. We need law. So 3 aspects: the protection, the capacity of satisfying our needs, economy, exchange, and also the security internal through law to assure peace. And that is we have here the military, here we have the economy, here and we have the mutual trade, exchange, and here the protection of the rights of each one. Suppose a farmer cultivates and put aside his rice or his wheat for 1 or 2 years, like in Cameroon, North Cameroon, they have to put that for sometimes many years. So they have to protect that, you know. You have a right on that. A title, we saw that yesterday, huh? The title. If I have a right, I have a reason. The reason, because I work, I produce that, it is mine, for my family. I have to be protected against others who want to take that.
Can you say again the first word replace for military, Father?
Hmm?
The first word you say for military.
The military. Well, the origin of military, in fact, it is the defense, if you want. We can say defense. Defense against, at the origin, wild beast. Wild beast. It's not a myth. It's a reality. Even here, in some place, in Canada, for example, in Churchill Fall, what happened? The polar bear, when they are hungry, they go down, and they arrive in Churchill Fall. Imagine a polar bear, and the children go to school in the morning, and they met on the same street. That is not a joke, it's real. That is absolutely real. So they have to protect the people against wild beasts, against polar bear. You know, it's not in the Middle Age, it is today. The problem exists in my country, you know. And it is so successful that now people come by plane and they have special bus, and the people are in the bus to watch the polar bear without going to the North Pole. So that is military, defense against the force of nature and against also the enemy, and those who want to take my children, for example, to enslave them. That is, it is true today. It's funny that we think sometimes it was in the past. Today, there are children, they are enslaved. When I was in Cameroon, we received students from Central Africa Republic, and one of them lived on the border of Sudan. And in 1972 already, we know what happened, but the newspaper didn't speak about that. That enslaved children. And many children, they escape. Father, mother say, run, 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 because you will be enslaved. There's a movie on that, The Lion Child, an enfant lion. Okay. So, okay, so answer your question. Now, let us go to those who say, no, 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 that is only fiction. The reality of society, of a state, is coming from the will of man. And that is the opinion of, we call, the social contract. The social contract. And we have three names attached to that. We have Hobbes, we have Rousseau, the French, Jean-Jacques Rousseau, and you have John Locke. So we'll say a word about each of them. I will try to synthesize that, but you can read by yourself the text. In fact, what is common to them, it is called the general will. There is no individual will like for a king, a dictator, a king, that is the will of the king. But in that system proposed by Hobbes, Rousseau and Locke, what will be the origin will be the general will. The people. I read the text, you have that down. To confer all their powers and strength upon one man or upon an assembly of men, that may reduce all their wills by plurality of voices, votation, unto one will. To submit this will, everyone, to his will, the will of the general will, made with the will of people, and their judgment to his judgment. So in fact it is a unity made by covenant, covenant, or contract, a covenant, alliance. It is a kind of alliance, a kind of covenant made between the people and those who will take the authority. So the general will will be put into the hand of one. For example, in England, the king. And when Hobbes, don't forget, Hobbes was the philosopher of the king. So when you are like Hegel, I was the philosopher of the king of Prussia. So when you are the philosopher of the king, you have to be on the side of the king, you know. So the will, it was to, in fact, it was a kind of justification of the power of the king of England. Like Hegel justified the power of the emperor of Prussia, you know. So that is interesting. So and how they call it the Leviathan, you know, in the Bible, the monster. So the people, in fact, the king or the leader is invested by the will of the people. He is there by the will of the people. Interesting. Because before, like in France, the king was there by the will of God. By the will of God. No, he said, no, it's the will of the people. Don't forget, those people here, they live, especially Rousseau and all, they live at the time of the Enlightenment. They were at the source. They were those who provoke enlightenment. I mean, that where the human reason become the God. You know, at that time, even in Paris, the French Revolution, and Notre Dame, they put the statue of the déesse raison, the goddess reason. That means it is the triumph of the human reason. You know? Okay? So when we study that, we must to study that in the whole history. So, in fact, politics, economy, all that is linked with philosophy. All that is linked with the conception of man. Okay? And it is interesting that I continue to quote Hobbes. He said, the multitude so united in one person, for example, the King of England, is called Commonwealth. Commonwealth. What is the title of, official title of Connecticut? The Commonwealth of Connecticut. What is the official title of Massachusetts? The Commonwealth of Massachusetts. You know that? And the name given to all the country united with under the King of the Queen of England is the British Commonwealth. Canada is there, Nigeria, Cameroon, yes.
Father, I'm just looking at the two categories of people that talked about the original state as coming from nature and man-made. When you look at the issue of nature, the state coming from nature, being natural to man, you look at man instead of nature and chaos that goes with it, you begin to wonder actually whether the state was intrinsically within the nature of man, because just like when we use the example of Cain and Abel, before the Enlightenment, you discover that man in state of nature is invisibly war to each other. If you negate the structure, the rule, the law that guide the state, which is constituted by man, so man automatically in state of nature cannot function properly because it becomes a survival of the fittest.
Okay, so you go to the conclusion, but it's, if man is the ruler of everything, we are not surprised there are wars. Huh? In fact, wars come from what? From men. Problems come from men. And even in the state of nature, not everything is perfect. Why? Because man is free. So he is free in the state of nature. That means even if we accept the origin of the state is nature, we have problem. And if man is the source of right and duty, we have also problem. But the difference is, in the state, if we recognize nature as superior to the origin, the origin of the state, we have a criterion to judge the reality. If that comes from us, we are the judge. So I can say that is good. And you no, no, that is not good. What is that? Relativism. Relativism is attached to that system. Because the will is given not by God, by nature, is given, the general will does not come from higher authority, it comes from us. So not everyone will agree. Okay? So the problem, anyway, on both sides we have social problem.
Yeah.
But the problem can be judged by higher values. The other problem are judged by equal, by my values, your values, you know. Okay? We will come back on that, huh? Okay? So, what is the difference between Hobbes, Rousseau, and Locke? Hobbes, he say man is anti-social, huh? Anti-social. Huh? In fact, man is not by nature social. Man by nature is alone. You want to live alone. Huh? And so, but you know, he has big problem because if man live alone, another alone, finally he says man is a wolf for man. Huh? Homo homini lupus. Huh? Homo man, homini for man, lupus wolf. Huh? So man is a wolf for man. That means if we let men alone, they will fight, and we will be the victorious, like the strongest. Huh? So you see, that is a state we cannot accept because there is a possibility to defend the weak, etc. So we must have a right. So we put our power together, and we say, you will be the boss, and we accept to obey you. And what is interesting is the same idea for Rousseau. He said, when we obey the king, we obey us. Because the king is there, because we will the king be there, you know. So in fact, when Jean-Jacques Rousseau says the same thing also. So when we decide for the general will, we should say that general will accomplishes, realizes my will. Because I decided to be there. So he represents my will. And that should be the cause of harmony, huh? The cause of peace.
Father,
Yes.
when a man they have a full free will, so they want to be a person who become their leader. So they want, don't they think they will lose some freedom from them?
Yes, they accept a limit of their freedom to be freer, more free, you know?
No, when we under another authority, so we will lose some freedom.
Yes, but you lose some freedom to protect yourself. Because if you don't lose that freedom, you will not free. Because in the state of nature, according to us, it is the most powerful who run the business. It's not the just, it is the might. It's not use, it is right. Might. So, and might, that is not the best society. So we have to accept. In fact, every time you live in society, you have to limit your freedom. No, you don't limit your freedom. You limit the exercise of your freedom. And you will that. You enter the society, huh? You enter a community, you enter a diocese, or you married, you accept to limit the usage of your freedom. For example, if you marry, you cannot say to your wife, you know, okay, take care of the children, now I go hunting. Huh? I take a while, no. You have to work together. Yeah? You are limited by the responsibility you have. Okay? That is to be a human being, to be responsible. Freedom, don't forget, goes with responsibility. It's not freedom, it's not free for all. Okay? So the situation being difficult to live as enemy from one to the other, it's better to have an agreement. And the sovereign, the king, we give him our will, and that will now is absolute. It is in the term of the contract. So the King of England is a good king because it is the will of the people too. In fact, historically, you know, the King of England, it is the defender of the people. against the Lord. That is historical. Those who are, you know, Robin Hood, huh? And the Prince John, the Black Prince, all those things. In the 12th century, in the Maya Carta, the Maya Carta, the major charter, it is, in fact, the king was the defender of the people. It is, I think, one of the reasons why in England they are attached to the king. It is a kind of security, a kind of stability. Imagine, for 60 years now they have the same queen. No election for the president. They save billions of dollars. And they are united under the same. That is, it's a choice also. Huh? It's a choice of society. Huh? Okay. Now Rousseau. Rousseau says, "Oh no, the man is not a savage. Is not a beast. Man was a good savage. A good savage. Huh? He was not corrupted. What corrupts man is society. When they live together, now they become. When they have to trade, when they have to live together, then he becomes a bad man. But before he was an angel. Huh? He was a good savage. Huh? The good savage.
Why now different? Good savage or
good savage. That means a savage. You know what is that? Huh? It's a man who lives alone in the forest with beads. You know, you have no communication with the society. Huh? That's the definition of savage. Okay? So Jean-Jacques Rousseau, but that is only fictive. It's only fictive. In fact, it is true that man was a savage. He was always obliged to live in family. What is family? It is to live together in society, no? A pure savage like Robinson Crusoe. You know Robinson Crusoe? And that man from Switzerland, he went and finally he went on the island alone. But he did not stay alone. He had Friday with him. Huh? We cannot stay alone. It's impossible. It's impossible. Okay. We are social. We are social. Okay. So you see, although everyone put in common is will under the general will. So in fact, the term general will comes from Jean-Jacques Rousseau. It is the inventor of the term general will. You know? So it's a fiction. It's a fiction. We put our will in the general will. And that general will, incarnated in one man or in a group of men, a parliament, for example, those are now expressing my own will. So when the government say you have to pay taxes, it is my will. I'm not sure people like that. We should. We should say all the decisions of the government, they are the best because they express the general will. That is the theory of Rousseau. And what is common to it is a contract. It is a social contract, a social contract. Society is not from nature, it's from the will of man. So if it's from the will of man, man can change their will, no? Can change society, can change the values of the society. And we see that now in our societies, in Europe, in Canada, United States, for example, in relation with marriage. Marriage was so sacred, now it is on another level, you know. So the collective body is a public person. In fact, the state is a moral person. And we saw that before that a moral person has the right and duties. Has right and duties. Okay. So in fact, what is interesting, for Rousseau, man is good when he is not living in society. But he has to live in society, he has no choice. So we can say society is a necessary, the state is a necessary evil. The best is to live without that. And he talk about Karl Marx. Karl Marx said at the end there will be the red paradise. A society without authority. That's exactly the idea of Jean-Jacques Rousseau. No? Is it possible that we have a society without... In heaven, that is not philosophy, huh? It's theology. Will be some authority who will be what, who will do what we want. When there is harmony in the orchestra,
There must be a conductor.
when there is a conductor, and we play together at the same pace. Huh? So you see, in heaven, I'm sure. Or we have that in every time the priest says, the preface of the Mass, he speak about angel, archangel, dominion, throne. All that are hierarchy of angels. Huh? So that is theology, philosophy. Okay. So the right of the state is made with the accumulation of the individual right. So the right of the state is the sum of all the right of the people. So when I obey the state, I satisfy my own right, because it is the will. And how we exercise that will? Through votation. Through votation. Essentially, it is the people who elect, who choose, who put their will into the hand of one or someone. So Locke is a combination of two things. Locke, he says, okay, man is naturally social. He recognizes, like Aristotle, that man is naturally social. But when he lived with others, he is no more naturally social. You see the distinction. Huh? Man is naturally social, but when he lives in society, political society, now is no more nature, it is the will, convention. In fact, it is a mixture of Aristotle and Hobbes and Rousseau. Huh? Personally, alone, man is a naturally social. He lives with his wife, with his children. Then when men arrive on the level of the city, the level of the polis, political means polis, city. Now he is no more, he is a political animal, it is under the social contract. So alone, I am in morality. When I am with others, I am in legality. You remember Kant, a philosopher, insists on the distinction between morality and legality. Hobbes, Locke said the same thing. Men alone, by nature, obey natural law. Okay? In his family. But when it is in the level of society, he obeys the law of the state. So he makes a distinction between morality and legality. It is the system in which we live. Locke had a great influence on American politics. So, okay, you have your ethics. You have your ethics. Personally, respect, etc., the law of nature, no problem. But when we are on society, no more ethics. It is legality. And the classical case of that is abortion, for example, euthanasia. It is not a question of morality, it is a question of legality. And that is the source of that was Locke, was Kant also. Locke and Kant. And today, we have that. Another reason I told you, in philosophy of God, it is the distinction between the theist and the deist. Here we have the theist, and here we have the deist. The deist, they say, faith is one thing. God created the world, after that, finish. Take care of the world. He gave us dominion, and now he is in his heaven, and we are on earth. We do our business, and he contemplates himself. He is happy there. So, separate between that. On Sunday, you give to the poor. On the week, you crush the poor. You understand that? Huh? Everything is linked with everything. So the conception of man, the conception of politics is also linked with the conception of God. If we accept nature, we accept that God continues to take care of us. Therefore, we have to obey in everything. But if God does not take care of us, it is man who is the boss, but it is only legality. So at such a point, for example, he's not allowed to make the sign of the cross on the football goal. He's not allowed to say our Father before a game. Why? Ethics is religion. Ethics is religion. Faith. Ethics. They make a distinction between. That is important for you to study ethics. To see that ethics is not only a question of religion, it's coming from my reason. I reason on my nature. I discover that I depend on the author of nature. Okay? Now, let us go now to the natural law theory, because it is the position I invite you to adapt, because I think you have taste, and because you have taste, so we can accept the theory of natural law. Theory of natural. That means our life in society is based on the fact we are human beings. And we are human beings, but by ourselves, we receive our humanity, we receive our existence. So we depend on the author of nature. And the author of nature, we call him God. And you are afraid, we speak about eternal law. Eternal law. Okay? So the first idea in that theory of natural, the natural law theory, the first is man is naturally social. Is not social by need, is social by nature. That's the difference. For the convention, man is social by need. No, man is social by nature. Well, here we have to go to what we studied in philosophy of man. You remember, we have an intellect, and we have an intellect, we have to understand, and we want to communicate with others. We have a language, we have a will, we have a heart, we want to love. We have social because we have the faculty and the intellect and the will to make us in communion with others. And when we study what is knowledge, you remember? Yes. Knowledge is an intentional communion. Intentional communion. By nature, because we are intelligent and because we are free, we have a will, tending toward the good, avoiding evil, tending toward the truth. To communicate to others is a necessary. It's a necessity, and that necessity is expressed in a special way for us through language. Language is the expression of our natural social dimension. So man is responsible as soon as he uses intellect. So there was always the natural law. As long as on earth there was a human being, that means a man with an intellect and a free will, we have human nature. And that man, because he was intelligent and free, he has to obey his conscience. He has to obey his nature. He has to obey natural law. It is inscribed in our nature. And our nature is to be rational animal. Rational. Okay? A state, in fact, a state of non-morality about man is pure fiction. It's impossible that man, the first man, be not a social being. Impossible. Is the reason why the Bible is interesting, huh? He says it's not good for man to be alone. Let us give him a companion, huh? Yes, we cannot be alone. Impossible. Imagine what was the worst chastisement is to put man in the dungeon alone for the rest of his life. Is horrible. Man become crazy, completely fool. It is a need, a natural need to live with others. It is natural need to live with others. So, You have no choice. It is in my gene. It is my intellect. I cannot use my intellect without other. In fact, how do you arrive to speak, to talk? Because of your parent, because of the society around you, no? We depend on another. We need to live together. The third reason, necessity of the family to prepare the state. In fact, the state will not exist if there is no family. And today we know through history, a state becomes better or becomes worse when the family is in good health or not in good health. Unfortunately, today is a big problem. Huh? And more now we speak about that on television. Recently I watched a program with scholars, and it was very interesting because now they are aware we are going to a catastrophe. No? Because family is destroyed many places. No? And another idea, there are fundamental rights and they are not given by the state. We have rights and the state cannot give those rights. For example, can you transfer, can the society decide by law that you will love your mother or you will thank your mother? When your mother gives you something, you must say, thank you, mother. And that the civil law obliges you to do that. No. You know, many things, we have many duties without referring to the society. We have many rights without referring to the society. The right to truth. It is given by the society, the right to the truth, to know the truth. The right to be loved by others. The right to have a good reputation. Of course, the society has laws to protect reputation. Why? Because the right of reputation is prior to the affirmation of the state. It is not the state that gives you the right of a reputation. You have your own right to reputation, but the state protects you against slander, against calumny, against defamation. You know, it is a right to have a good reputation, and that right is attached to my nature. It's not attached to the state. Okay. For example, the right to eat. We have a right to eat. No? Think, when you eat, you exercise a right and a duty, both. Yes, it's a duty to read. When you read, it's a moral action. Of course, we don't think about that, but it's true. It is so true that if you have nothing to eat, the others are responsible for you to give you something. And that comes from nature, does not come from the state. The state is there to protect your personal right, human right. Okay. Another thing, there must be a natural obligation for assuring the permanence of the state. Suppose the state is a mere convention by the people living now. Okay. When those people die, normally the state should disappear. In a contract, you know, in a contract, one of the two terms die, the contract stops. And a good example of that is marriage, no? Marriage is a contract. So when one of the two spouses die, the contract is ended. So how we can assure that the contract given to the state in 1776 continue to have force? It is not because of the will of man, because men died. Washington died, all those people died, and we continue to obey the law of the United States. That means there is something above, something obliging the people. In fact, do you obey all the time? Do you act all the time because it is the state who obliges you to do something? When you drive wisely, you don't go faster than 100 miles per hour. You drive surely. Is it because there is a cop, a policeman there? And when you stop at the right light, it is always because... No, you so. It's my duty to respect others. I must right. You know, in fact, we obey. The majority of people, I saw that, obey their conscience. They don't obey the government. Because if it was necessary, think about that every citizen in the country obey only because there is a pure convention and there must be a policeman to make him obey, life will be absolutely impossible. Everybody will be in the police, because there will be one police to supervise the police, the other police, the other. Now it's impossible. In fact, the society is coming after the nature. Nature is the source of our living together. Okay? But I continue. The social contract cannot have greater authority than the contracting parties give it. There are rights of the state that no individual can possess, because the concern, the common good, is in the it is the contract theory. There is no way the state can legally obtain them. That means some rights are so natural that the state cannot create them, cannot control them. The unique thing the state can do is protect them. For example, the right for a baby to be born. The right to baby to be born does not come from the state. It comes from the nature of man. But the right and the duty of the state is to protect that baby. The state does not give the right to a baby to be born or to be killed. That is the gravity of the law for abortion. You know, the duty of the state, it is to respect nature, to protect nature. The life of the citizen is not in the hand of the state. The state is an organization, necessary organization to protect the common good. What is the common good? It's not the good of the state, it is the good of the citizen. Sometimes we forget that. We think the common good is the good. No, it is the good of the citizen, the good of the person. Now, the characteristic of the state. What is the first characteristic of a state? It is self-sufficiency. Self-sufficiency, we call also sometimes sovereignty. Both. Self-sufficiency and sovereignty. Sovereignty to be the master, to be the master of my laws. For example, a country is not, a state is not linked with the quantity of people. You have some states, they are very small. For example, Belgium is not a big state. Or you have Russia, it's a huge state. The United States is huge. Canada is huge in land, but not in people. So the state is the capacity to produce, to control the organization of the people living in the borders. So, but be careful, self-sufficiency does not mean that we have everything to live. Not every country in the world can say we have everything to live. Even China, even Russia, even the United States, we depend on others. No? Yes. Nobody, no nation on earth now is absolutely self-sufficient materially. So when we speak about self-sufficiency, it's not that. It is in the legal order. In the legal order, they have their own laws. The law of Belgium are not the law of Netherlands. You know? The law of Monaco are not the law of Liechtenstein. It's a little country. So self-sufficiency does not mean we call autarky. What is autarky? It is the capacity to live alone, absolutely alone. To produce everything we need. Autarky. Auto, arche. Arche means to be the boss. Auto, alone. So I can suffice to myself. I can produce my shoes. I can produce my glasses. I can produce my shirts. I can produce my car. I can produce everything. No. When we speak about self-sufficiency, we don't speak about autarky. We speak about the capacity for a state to organize its common life, to have laws and to be able to apply them. Okay? A congregation is the same. It is like a state. And we have the capacity of self-sufficiency. That means you have your own role, and the superior is able to conduct all the sister, all the brother, or the priest in the society toward the realization of the charism. Of course, we need others for many things. Okay? The limit. What are now the limit of sovereignty? Because to have peace, we must precise borders. There was a war, two wars again between Canada and United States. 1776, and when they want to, at the same time, they wanted to get rid of British here. They attacked Canada. They wanted to annex Canada to United States. And in 1812. It's not in your book, but it is in our books. Because, after that, what happened? Well, British, Canadian, and American, they sat down, they say, hey, we have not to fix borders. Otherwise, we continue to fight. So they fixed borders, the borders. So the borders are limiting the sovereignty of a country. And the sovereignty of a country is not only limited by the borders, the country is limited by something above. Can the state do what it wants? For example, was Stalin allowed to send 60 million people to Siberia and to death, to Gulag? Or Hitler to kill 6 million Jews? Or Mao Zedong to send to death 60 million Chinese? So, there is some restriction to a state. A state cannot do what he wants. Otherwise, it will be the law of jungle. For example, a big state like Russia, what happened today? They want to take a part of Ukraine. And now, we don't want to fight with guns, but we fight with economy. And one of the consequences of that, the ruble, the money, lost about 40% of the value. It's a catastrophe for Russia. Imagine you have $100, and 2 weeks after, you have only $60 in your pocket. You lose $40, that hurts. Hurt. That is the way to practice war now. We try to influence through economic sanction. So here, there are restrictions to freedom and independence of state. So state is limited by natural law, by natural life. For us, in our theory, of course, that is the problem of the social contract. How we can affirm that two countries that are made by the will of man can live together?
Possible,
They don't accept any supreme authority. It's a big problem. And they created the United Nations. The United Nations is not a super government. It's only a moral reality, no more than that. So, in fact, we have to trust people because they obey their conscience. Yesterday there was a program, Mr. Jack Ma. I don't know if you know Mr. Jack Ma. I discovered him. He's a Chinese. He created Alibaba. You know that? Maybe you use that, Alibaba. In fact, he said, the key of the success of economy is trust. If there is no trust, it is failure. If you want to cheat a day or another, you will fail. He said the success of my organization is trust, confidence, honesty. That means everyone, when they buy or we send something, is honest. But to be honest, it means to obey my conscience. If I obey my conscience, I obey something, someone, some reality above me. Okay? So, secondly, all nations form a world community. That is also a reality now. It's it is so real that we have an institution, organization of the United Nations. But even before, why? Because we are the same race, the same. And we are not, we are intelligent, we are free. We exist on the same earth, but we have the same nature. It's not because we live in the same place. We live with our cats and our dogs, and they are not human. But we are together because we are intelligent and free. So the problem, what is the big problem? It is how to conciliate the freedom and the autonomy of a country with the autonomy and the freedom of another country. In fact, we have the same problem at the level of countries as we have the same problem at the level of the human person. And all the international relation, politics, is a fight if you want to make people respect the rights of every nation. Okay? So now the problem between the relation between the human person and the family and the person. What is the first? Well, in the theory of nature, of course, the first is the human person, the family. And the state is made with family. In that theory, it is because the personalist theory. And that personalist theory was proposed by a philosopher, French philosopher, Mounier and Maritain. Jacques Maritain and another Mounier. And I will spend 3 hours about that, on personalism. Because there is three tendencies. Those who have the tendency to favor the interest of everyone, my interest, my individualism, my interest. The other is say, no, what is the most important is the common good. So collectivism, for example, Marxism. And finally, those who say, a way between them. We have to take care of the person, but at the same time, we cannot avoid to live together. So the central reality is not my interest. The central reality is not the state. The central reality is the human person. And in fact, we spend 3 hours to study the system based on individualism, capitalism. 3 hours to study Marxism, system based on collectivism. The first reality is the state, and finally 3 hours to study personalism. Okay? That is the plan of. So that is the concept of a society. A society can be made with atoms, and those atoms are together by accident, like an aggregate, or they can be together like an organ. Everyone depends necessarily on the other. That is the collectivism. And the other try to respect both, because both are right. Everyone has his own interest, his own freedom, but at the same time there is necessity to take care of the common good. So that is the third way, and that third way is called sometimes the way of subsidiarity. That means the authority, the state must not take the place of the people, of the organization. They can do a good job. You know, is there to protect them, is there to sustain them. So the control is not in the individual, in the big shot, big man, very rich man. It's not in the control of the state. It is in the respect of the human person. Okay? That is the big challenge in our society. So here we have the map and the GPS. The GPS. In fact, all the time, the atomic. We have in physics, we have the two motion. If you turn water like that, what happens? Water is centrifugal. That is atomic. Everyone is going. There is no central. We are turning in such a way that the things are going out. There is another, because centripede, to go to the center, the spiral. That is collectivism. Everything goes to the center. Capitalism, everything goes to the periphery. And we have to be between. And to be between is not easy. To respect the interests of everyone, at the same time to respect the common good. How to conciliate the common good and the personal interest. I think that is the problem summarizing all politics. All social life is there. How to conciliate the personal freedom and interest with the common good, with the state. Okay. Enjoy your weekend. Did you stop?